I could now see that my intense conviction of my words had had its effects upon Quissa. His gaze was no longer drawn to the small stage on the opposite side of the room, but was directed full upon me. He did remain somewhat distraught in the face of the truth about his delusion, yet he seemed to have settled down considerably. I lit another of my mild cigarettes and glanced around the room, not looking for anything or anyone in particular, but merely gauging the atmosphere. The tobacco smoke drifted through the club, and it was so much thicker. The amber light several shades darker, and the sound of raindrops still played against the black painted windows of the Crimson Cabaret. I was now back in the cabin of that old ship as it was being cast about in a vicious storm at sea, utterly insecure in its bearings and profoundly threatened by uncontrollable forces. Quissa excused himself to go to the restroom, and his form passed across my field of vision like a shadow through fog. I have no idea how long Quissa was gone from the table. My attention became fully absorbed by the faces of the others in the club, and the deep anxiety they betrayed to me. An anxiety that was not of the natural, existential sort, but that one that was caused by peculiar concerns of an uncanny nature. What a season is upon us, these faces seem to say, and no doubt their voices would have spoken directly of certain peculiar concerns had they not been intimidated into weird equivocations and double entendre by the fear of falling victim to the same kind of unnatural affliction that had made so much trouble in the mind of the art critic Stuart Quissa. Who would be next? What could a person say these days, or even think, without feeling the dread of repercussion from powerfully connected groups and individuals? I could almost hear their voices asking, why here? Why now? But, of course, they could just as well have been asking, why not here? Why not now? It would not occur to this crowd that there were no special rules involved. It would not occur to them, even though they were a crowd of imaginative artists, that the whole thing was simply a matter of random, purposeless terror that converged upon a particular place at a particular time for no particular reason. On the other hand, it would not have occurred to them that they might have wished it all upon themselves, that they might have had a hand in bringing certain powerful forces and connections into our district simply by wishing them to come, that they might have wished and wished for an unnatural evil to fall upon them, but for a while at least nothing happened. Then the wishing stopped. The old wishes were forgotten, yet at the same time grew in strength. distilling themselves into a potent formula. Who can say? Until one day the terrible season began. Because had they really told the truth, this artistic crowd might also have expressed what a sense of meaning, although of a negative type. Not to mention the vigorous thrill, although of an excruciating sort. This season of unnatural evil had brought to their lives. What does it mean to be alive, except to court disaster at every moment? For every diversion, for every thrill our born nature requires in this carnival world, even to the point of apocalypse, there are risks to be taken. No one is safe. Not even art magicians or esoteric scientists, who are the most deluded among us because they are the most tempted by amusement of an uncanny and unnatural kind. Fumbling, as any artist or scientist must, with the inherent chaos of things. It was during the moment that I was scanning the faces of the Crimson Cabaret and thinking my own thoughts about those faces that a shadow again passed across my foggy field of vision. While I expected to find that this shadow was Quisser, returned from his trip to the restroom, I instead found myself confronted by the waitress, who Quisser had claimed was such a good friend of the Crimson Woman. She asked if I wanted to order yet another cup of mint tea, saying it in these words, "Yet another cup of mint tea?" Trying not to become irritated by her queerly sarcastic tone of voice, which would only have aggravated my already queasy stomach, I answered that I was about ready to leave for the night. Then I added that perhaps my friend would like yet another glass of wine, pointing across the table to indicate the empty glass Quisser had left behind when he excused himself to go to the restroom. But there was no empty wine glass across the table. There was only my empty cup of mint tea. I immediately accused the waitress of taking away the empty wine glass while I was distracted by my reverie upon the faces in the Crimson Cabaret. But she denied ever serving any glass of wine to anyone at my table, insisting that I had been alone from the moment I arrived at the club and sat down at the table across the room from the small stage area. After a thorough search of the restroom, I returned and tried to find someone kind. Even Quither himself, when I tracked him down the next day to a hole-in-the-wall art gallery, maintained that he had not seen me last night. He said that he had spent the entire evening at home by himself, claiming that he had suffered some indisposition, some bug, he said, from which he had since fully recovered. When I called him a liar, he stepped right up to me as we stood in the middle of that hole-in-the-wall art gallery, and in a tense whisper he said that I should watch your words. I was always shooting off my mouth, he said, and in the future I should use more discretion in what I said and to whom I said it. He then asked me if I thought it was really wise to open my mouth at a party and call someone a deluded, no talent. There were certain persons, he said, who had powerful connections, and I, of all people, he said, should know better, considering my awareness of such things and the way I displayed this awareness in the stories I wrote. Not that I disagreed with what you said about you-know-who, he said, but I would not have made such an open declaration about it. You humiliated her, and these days such a thing can be very perilous, if you know what I mean. Of course, I did know what he meant, though I did not yet understand why he was now saying these words to me rather than I to him. Was it not enough, I later thought, that I was still suffering a terrible stomach disorder? Did I also have to bear the burden of another's delusion? But even this explanation eventually fell to pieces upon further inquiry. The story multiplied about the night of that party. Accounts proliferated among my acquaintances and peers concerning exactly who had committed the humiliating offence, and even who had been the offended party. Why are you telling me these things? The crimson woman said to me when I proffered my deepest apologies. I barely know who you are. And besides, I've got enough problems of my own. That bitch of a waitress here at the club has taken down all my paintings and put up her own. All of us had problems, it seemed, whose sources were unknown, untraceable, crossing over one another like the trajectories of countless raindrops in a storm, blending to create a fog of delusion and counter-delusion